thing and let's rock and roll. This is super exciting. Yay, Diana. No, thank you. Are you kidding? Diana was just on, what day is today? Thursday, Tuesday. It's fantastic. I got the recording all uploaded. I feel like I'm forgetting something to do, but that might just be like how I feel all the time this year, is like there's still something that I'm forgetting, but oh well. But we're super excited to have you guys tonight. My name is Meredith White. A lot of us have already met many times. I teach in Atlanta. I teach Spanish 1 and 2, just outside of Atlanta, Northeast, where the president and first lady are literally 2 miles from my house right now. I was like staring at the sky earlier, waiting for like Air Force One or whatever I thought I was gonna say. But the traffic was really bad, so I, made sure to get home and all those kind of things. So yeah, it's kind of, things are kind of happening around here. I'm excited to have TJ. TJ, I think you're one of the only people, actually 2 people on this call, you and Joe, are 2 of the only people I've ever roomed with at a conference or like at something professional. Cause you know how you get to be like a single room kind of person where you're like, I just, like you just want to spread out. You just kind of want to do your thing. Yep. And go as you please. So it's really nice to find people who you can like do that with, and then also like save, cut the cost and save a little bit. So I'm excited to have you, and obviously dear, like to my heart and soul, friendship wise. I'm excited to talk about your topic too, because you've done so much on the development side of plan and like the behind the scenes. That's an experience I totally do not have, but like I'm excited to learn more about how you've done that, but also just talk about like professional organizations in general, because I feel like we have the same interest and the same passion in, our profession, but also like keeping the momentum going and keeping each other going professionally and connecting, much like we are tonight. So for those attending, if you could put in the chat where you are, where you find yourself, and TJ will tell us where he finds himself these days and what he's teaching this year as well.
Yeah, so thanks, Meredith, so much for the invitation to be here. I appreciate you so much. And I mean, like Meredith said, I can't emphasize enough, like, Meredith is one of my favorite people on earth. Like, we text daily with Joselito, and it's just this connection that we have in between professional things and personal things and that kind of stuff. I'm loving it. And I see Ashley in the chat. I feel like Ashley's a little celeb at the moment in Texas and stuff. Hi, Ashley. Hola, Ashlita. All right, so let's talk about me real quick. Hi, my name is TJ Troche. Who even is this guy? I am a national board certified Spanish teacher. I teach at the Spring Valley High School in Las Vegas, Nevada. Yeah, we are little buddies, huh?
Yeah, still little.
I teach at Spring Valley High School in Las Vegas, Nevada. Spring Valley High School is, I don't know, about 10 minutes just west of the Las Vegas Strip. I am also the president of our state organization currently for, let's see, what month is it? It's April, May, July, for 5 more months. After my 2-year term is going to end as president, I'll move into the past president position. PLAN is the Professional Language Association of Nevada. And I should have mentioned, actually, for my Georgia folks in the room, like I lived in Georgia for 12 years. Like I lived in Atlanta and Stone Mountain actually for like 12 years. So
it's like you're coming back home a little bit. Like
a little bit kind of. And honestly, like, so I'm coming to Atlanta in July for the AATSP conference. Shout out AATSP. Florencia, Diana, I know you'll be there probably. And that'll be my first time back actually for quite a hot minute. I haven't been back for quite a while. Anyways, I've been in Nevada now for 20 some odd years. So I know I don't look it. It's just because we hydrate and we moisturize. Yes. I'm also one of the 9 through 12 representatives on the board of the AATSP, the American Association of Teachers of Spanish and Portuguese this year. So I'm currently serving on 2 different boards. AATSP in Atlanta, whoop whoop, shout out to the AATSP. Please come to our conference in Atlanta. It can be our first in-person. You can actually hug people if you're vaccinated now. I think that's a thing.
Yes.
And so let's continue with a little bit of who even is this guy? Continue with a little bit of who even is this guy? I consider myself to be a little bit of a board of directors jumper. And I feel like that's kind of why I was invited to do this, Meredith, maybe because a little bit of why I was invited to do this. And sorry, I have notes like because I'm one of those
As one
teaching
does.
for 16 years and I still look at my lesson plan every 2 seconds to make sure I'm doing what I need to be doing. And same thing. And also type A Virgo. Let's throw that out there as well. Um, so I've also served on 2 other boards prior to serving on the plan board and the AATSP board. I've served as the Nevada representative to the Southwest Conference on Language Teaching for 3 years. And in that capacity, I ran the Teacher of the Year program for a couple of years and ran their Awards and Scholarships program for a year as well. And I was the Region 4 director of Sociedad Honoraria Hispánica for 3 years as well. Region 4 is like the 14 Western states because it's currently only like 4 p.m. or something like that here. So we're totally in the Western states. You want to go to the, yes, Nelson, please go to the AATSP conference. There should be a really good showing for Portuguese as well this year. So totally. What else do I want to mention here? And so something that I took away from my time on those boards is just super paying attention. When I first got on the board with Southwest Colt, I had only been teaching for like 6 years. So I took a risk. I threw myself out there and said, hey, I'm going to run for this position. And I was so fortunate to be able to work with people like the first person I'm going to mention is Greta Lundgaard. I know, right? Goddess, right? And learned so much from her, and Jocelyn Rott, who's now the current executive director of the Southwest Colt. So I took my time on those boards, especially on the Southwest Colt board, to observe and watch and learn. And something that I took away from me, why do I keep saying that from me? Something I took away from that experience is that serving on a board is not something that is only for certain people. It's not something that is only for a certain type of person either. And little by little, I started gaining confidence. And so I first served on the Southwest Colt board just as a state representative. When my time finished with that, I feel like it's for everyone. Florencia. I totally do, Florencia. And something that I feel like more people should totally and that's going to be one of the tenets of our talk today is why we should be at the table. So I started, that was kind of my first experience serving on a board, was with as the state representative to Southwest Colt. It's 9 Southwestern states. And then I went a little bit bigger and went to a national organization, the Sociedad Honoraria Hispánica, and served as the Region 4 director for 3 years. And in that capacity, I worked with sponsors of the Spanish Honor Society, the Sociedad Honoraria Hispánica, in the 14 Western states, and built the presence of the Sociedad, built the como lo digo, the social media presence of the Sociedad as well. And something I'm most proud of that time of serving on the Sociedad board was getting the Sociedad recognized by the National Association of Secondary Schools Principals as a recognized program and an endorsed program by them. So that was pretty fun. That was pretty cool. And something that I want to stress here is, even though okay, so let's go back one slide. So I'm currently the president of the Professional Language Association of Nevada, right? I've been on the plan board for, I know this doesn't sound great, but I've been on the plan board for probably 8 years. And we like to see boards rotate. And new people come in and stuff like that. And that is happening. I want you to know that is happening. And that is something that we want to see. But I mention that because I started on the plan board as an outreach and mentorship
Oh,
coordinator.
you know that.
Yeah, I started on the board as an outreach and mentorship coordinator, and then my best friend on earth, Mr. Ryan Smith, asked me to run for vice president because he was running for president, and I said, okay, why not? So, and then after vice president, I was like, okay, if I've been vice president for 2 years, let's run for president. So, um, while I've been kind of a mainstay on the board for a little while in Nevada, there has been that rotation. So it's not just been me chilling there and um, trying to run the show and that kind of stuff. So I don't want it to come across that way. But so the moral of that story is start small. If you look at if you're looking at say your state organization or something like Sociedad or something like your region or something like that, start with something small. You don't have to go for the gusto right off. I'm not saying you can't, but you don't have to go for president or vice president or something that looks big or looks too big right off the bat. Yes, absolutely. I love the idea of local chapters of AATSP um, and that kind of stuff. And Meredith, you are such a freaking gem for starting your student teacher now with understanding what professional associations are and what they can bring to you as a professional and stuff like that. I was just telling that we were chatting earlier, and my por ejemplo, SSH a Sociedad State coordinator, I had a student teacher about 2 years ago, and she was just presenting at our plan conference. Like, and that's another place you can start as well, is just like getting yourself out there, presenting at your state conferences and stuff like that. Tell my teachers that are interested in leadership. Yes.
Yeah,
The AATs are a great place to start because most of them do have the local chapters like Florencia was mentioning. Yeah, so it is very important for our people that are forming, or if you went, our I like to call us profe builders. Like for our those of us that are working with pre-service teachers, I should say that, let's use the words. Those of us that are working with pre-service teachers to emphasize the importance of not only becoming involved, but also stepping into a leadership role, because if without that pipeline of leaders, there is no association. And that is, I feel like what is kind of happening in some places around the country. But why is it important for you to be at the table? And I heard a quote one time, and I wish I knew who to accredit this quote to. But it has stuck with me forever. And I don't know when I heard it. It was probably before I ran for ATSP or before I ran for Southwest Colt. But why is it important to be at the table? It's important to be at the table so you're not on the menu.
Period.
And do you want to be like, I asked myself when I heard that, I was like, do I want to have decisions made for me and then top down approach, like totally like forced upon me? This is why to this day, I'm the guy and you can be the person that makes the decisions, that helps in the way decisions are made and stuff like that. We do not eat people at the ATSP. That is accurate. We do not cannibalize our members. That is accurate. And that was completely figurative. That was completely figurative. And you know that. I know you're just heckling a little bit, and I appreciate the heckling. If you're not at the table, it's Michael Enzi. Thank you, Diana. Te lo agradezco mucho. If you're not at the table, you're on the menu. Michael Enzi. I'm going to remember that. I'm going to take a picture of that before, well, the chat's getting saved, so I don't need to take a picture of that. Anyways, it's important to be at the table so you're not at the menu. And that is a very, like I said, figurative way of putting, like, if you don't want decisions made for you, be a part of making those decisions. And does it take a little bit of valentia, a little bit of bravery and putting yourself out there on your part? For sure. It absolutely does. And that, I think, is where a lot of people kind of get lost in the mix when they're like, I'm such an introvert, or I'm not that kind to put myself out there like that and be put under a microscope. It can be intimidating, and there is a microscope, to be real. Like, let's be real. There is somewhat of a microscope. But at the same time, what do we tell our students to do? What do we tell our students to do? We're all language teachers. What do we tell our students to do? We tell them to take risks, right? When it comes to speaking languages. And if you don't, exactly, thank you, Nelson. I love your contribution there. If you don't take a risk and put yourself out there, and this can apply to language, this can apply to your professional journey, this can apply to any of these things, you stagnate. And what happens when our students stagnate? What happens when our students stagnate? Their proficiency doesn't grow. They don't get to that next level that we want to see them get to and stuff like that. So becoming stagnant is something that I feel like a lot of teachers run into. And unless you really push yourself to not run into that, to not get caught in that, it can be, it leads to burnout. That's where the burnout happens. Absolutely. And that's why we see so much turnover, unfortunately, in our profession, and people leaving left and right.
Well, especially this year. Like, I would say, I think Kelly and I were talking, or like we were on something. I don't know if it was here in part of this series, or possibly talking about Go Formative, because she uses it as well. But we were talking about it somewhere, and it, like, there's a list of things like that I can fit on one hand that have saved my sanity this year. And I don't mean that like hyperbole. Like, there are like very few reasons why I have not just said, screw it, and like walked away this year, because this year has been so much in so many weird ways.
Right.
And one of them is professional organization, like professional involvement, because when you've got, it's like church, if you ever went to church or the gym, and then you don't go for a little while, and somebody goes, hey TJ, where you been? We haven't seen you in a while. And you're like, kind of stand up a little bit straighter, like, oh crap, they noticed that I haven't been here. It's that same kind of thing where you're kind of accountable to people in what can be, I think, a really positive, like forward momentum moving kind of way. And so that has felt really, I feel a strong sense of service anyway. And then being able to serve others and being able to help and share is really important. And that's something that has kept me, again, it's a very small list, but one major one is professional organizations, and just that the connection that we've been able to build with each other, and go like, TJ, hang on, you're doing great. Like, please don't,
right.
We need you. This is just 1 year. It's going to be really, it's weird for me too. Nobody answers on Zoom. Like, you're not the only one. And it's like, that can be really powerful, I think, to prevent burnout. I think you're exactly right.
Having that professional network, especially like you're mentioning, especially in a time like now, and having someone like Meredith just mentioned, like someone, like you say to someone, hey, I haven't seen you for a minute. What's up? Everything cool? Just having that just check-in moment with somebody that you have networked with as a result of being involved in some sort of professional something. That's how I know you. That's how I know Joe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's that can mean the world to somebody, just having that check-in and having that breath of fresh air, like, ooh, someone who I really respect as a professional is experiencing some of the very same things that I'm experiencing right now, and that can make us feel a lot better. And I love what Kelly is saying in the chat also, that no one, that someone wants a long term, but nobody else has wanted to do it. So there's oftentimes there is that if not me, who attitude of becoming involved. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. That doesn't mean that it comes from a place of ego. It doesn't mean that it comes from a place of but it seize the opportunity. When you seize that opportunity, take it. If not me, who, but why not you?
Right.
If that makes any sense.
I can remember my first year teaching was it was after my first year. We talked about this when Roman Zerwinski was on, because he was my first department chair ever. And I remember after my first year, you know how that goes, not well. And he was like, you did that thing with, that thing that one time, you should present on that. And I was like, girl, like, present where, to whom? Like, absolutely not. And he was like, yeah, I mean, like, whatever. It's an idea that maybe somebody didn't know about before and you did it okay, so like do it. And I remember thinking like it was really like I don't know, it was kind of special to feel like he saw that in me. Like he was like, you should like present that. And so like my second year teaching, I put in a proposal for flag, um, and got accepted and did a really not quite mediocre, a little below mediocre presentation, but was like sweating, you know, and super nervous. And it was really fun and got through it. And I thought, well, that was pretty cool. Like it got me past, I think we all still have some kind of imposter syndrome much of the time, when you make yourself vulnerable and share and do all those things. But there was a part of me that like that was like overcoming an obstacle. Like I didn't, from then on, I never thought really like, what do I have to share? Because at the time I was what, 23 or 24. You know, it's like, oh, what could I possibly like? No, he kind of, that was really nice, that encouragement. It helped me kind of get past that thing in my head, like you said, like, why not you? And I was like, oh, well,
Right.
no, I know. I'm not sure. And it's like, okay, but whatever. What does anybody know? Like,
Right.
just
Why not you? And you look at people that are in positions of leadership. You look at people that are in positions of like on a board of directors or something like that. And we almost kind of think they were born there. Does that make sense?
yes, 100%. That's so funny. Yeah, absolutely. Like, no, yeah, TJ's the print. He just boop, manifested himself there. Yeah, absolutely. Oh my God, that's so,
Um,
yeah.
so I want to take you guys into a little bit of, why is that not changing? There we go. Take you guys into a little bit of a couple of some glows and slows that I have for um, things that have happened in my professional organization and plan. Glows meaning successes, and slows meaning things that will be successes but aren't quite yet, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Um, so some and I want us to remember a couple things going into this. I want us to remember a couple things moving into this. First, that I wasn't born plan president. Second, that I've served on two boards prior to serving on the plan board and took a lot with me in terms of observing and learning, and started in smaller positions and worked my way up. Um, and third, that our professional association here in Nevada, and notice my pronunciation of the state, please commit it to memory, Nevada, um, um, is only 10 years old. Our state association's only been around for 10 years.
Wow. Wow.
We are a baby association.
Oof.
In comparison to yeah, in comparison to I don't know, I'm looking at Connecticut, I'm looking at Georgia, I'm looking at, and who have decades of history. Yeah. We've only, and it only happened by happenstance, because we were like, hey, why doesn't Nevada, do you know how it happened? We were like at Southwest Colt one day, and we were at our regional, and we're like, why don't we have anyone competing for a regional teacher of the year? Oh, it's because we don't have a state association. So we're like, oh, maybe we should have one.
We should do that. Right.
We should do that. And that was probably like 12 years ago now, because it took a minute to get it going. But anyways, let's talk about let's talk about the slows first. Let's talk about things that will be successes soon in our organization here. And I have a feeling that the things that are slows in our organization here in Nevada are likely going to be slows for other organizations as well, especially baby organizations like us. And that is kind of a commonality here in the Southwest area of the United States. Like New Mexico is kind of a baby organization, Arizona as well. Like they all have more history than Nevada does, but and Colorado, I think, is the one in the Southwest that has the most, probably even more than California. But let's talk about some slows first. Some things that I would love to see move over to the glow slide is our outreach to rurals. We're kind of an interesting population here in Nevada. We have two population centers, and they are Las Vegas and Reno, and we are driving 8 hours apart.
Right.
So we're a super tall state with nothing in between. In between Vegas and Reno, because Vegas is all the way in the far south and Reno's in the northern part of the state. Yeah, seriously, we're large. And the West is large in general. Between Vegas and Reno, like I said, 8 hours in between by car. we can count the number of not just high schools, the number of schools on two hands.
Shut up.
Yeah, there's nothing. There's nothing. It's so very. If you guys have seen there's an Oscar, the film that won the Oscar for, or no, it was Frances McDormand won the Oscar for
Yes,
Nomadland, right?
yes.
Nomadland takes place in, or it starts out in Empire, Nevada, which is north of Reno, actually. So like still in the same county as Reno, but way north, and mining. It's a mining town, and it was an actual thing. And I don't know what made me talk about that. Why did I start talking about that
Oh,
movie? Anyway,
the number of schools just like rural, like
uh,
not having like a lot of space in between all of them.
right. So like that town where that mine was has one school. It's a K-12 school and no language teacher and that kind of stuff. So even though it's in the same school district as Reno, but no language teacher at all. So those students unfortunately suffer from that equity issue that we're trying to work on at the state level as well. Um, Intrigued by the plan logo. Cool. We'll chat about it. Yeah, let's chat about it. So we would love to continue to reach out to our rurals because it's hard to get in touch with them. It's hard to get in touch with them, number one, because people don't stay there long.
Right.
And so we'll get in touch with somebody and then they're gone, because typically rural districts, I don't know if you guys have seen this in states where you're from, but in rural districts, oftentimes there's very attractive like sign-on packages, like come live in Hawthorne, Nevada or something, and we'll pay you $100,000 a year for 2 years, and then they peace out. And that's typically how language teachers are brought to those rural places in our state, anyways, here in Nevada. So we would love to see our outreach to those rural teachers grow, move over to the GLOW side. And I was just in another meeting the other day, another PD the other day, where people were saying that forming a pipeline of people to move into leadership, and not only just a pipeline of people, but a pipeline of diverse people that are representative of the demographics of the state, and especially the student body of the state, to move into leadership positions. That forming that pipeline has been rough, and it has a lot to do with that perception of people in leadership positions are born there. And breaking that perception is something we're going to have to work on together. And we would love to see outreach to our higher ed people, our charter schools, private schools. We have a number of, I'm not sure if this is a thing in Georgia, but we have a number of community-based heritage language schools that are like weekend language schools for like kids who speak Japanese at home, or kids who speak, I know like I'm working with a lady up in Seattle who runs the, what is it called? What is it called? What is it called? What is it called? She runs the Bulgarian language school in Seattle, Washington. Yeah, for heritage speakers of Bulgarian. And yeah, reaching out to those Saturday schools in Connecticut, I feel like that's awesome. I'm so glad you guys have those, because having those heritage based sidetrack, but having those heritage based language schools does such awesome things for a kid's identity, and for maintenance of language, and keeping kids involved and connected to their heritage and stuff like that. Whereas if they don't attend things like that, they can be lost, not only their identity of being a Bulgarian American or a Japanese American, but the language as well. Let me look at the chat real quick. Oh, switching the title of teacher to a facilitator, 100%. And that's just a change in paradigm. That's just a paradigm shift, absolutely, that we can chat about in a little bit. I would love to also, because we're such a young organization, and because world language was very much not in our state of Nevada, was very much not even on the radar of anybody at our State Department of Education. It has taken, like, we're in our 10th year, and we finally have a representative who is a social studies teacher, but she is like applying for the World Language Advancement and Readiness Act grants for us. She's doing like she's doing good stuff, and we feel like we are heard, and we feel like we are represented now. So That might be the next thing to move over to the glow, I think. Um, what else did I want to mention on here? Let's move over to the glows. Let's move over to the glows. And something I can mention with our glows is that none of these glows happened overnight. None of these glows came about because of anything happening easily. So the first thing is over our 10 years, in our 10 years of history, we've had 5 conferences. So we've only been having conferences for 5 years of our existence. Yeah, that's the thing. And every year we have seen increased membership and increased conference attendance. And that's a solid message to us that says, you're doing the right thing. You're doing what people need. People are liking what's happening, and keep doing that and keep evolving with that. We have, I feel like our board meeting, and this might be coming from a somewhat of a place of bias as the president of the organization, but I feel like our board meetings are super organized, and that has more than me, that has so much to do with my board that is all on the same page and communicates and has clear expectations, and it has to do with the people being awesome.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
In an organization. Like
Having
Meredith
like
was at Plan.
Yeah, and having like a united message and mission, everyone like aligned on the same agenda, and then able to kind of like go forth together with that is really
Yes, that's a big message, is making sure that things happen together and not like, I've seen people get into trouble on boards with decisions being made unilaterally and the board not being consulted and things like that. And those are obvious things you want to avoid. Let's see, that we've made a pretty, in pandemic times, we've made a pretty, we've had a pretty smooth transition to all online PD. And it's so worked in our favor, because that outreach to the rurals of people who would not be able to get to, like I said, it's 8 hours between Vegas and Reno. So at the most, someone would have to drive 4 hours to get to a PD if we do an in-person PD either in Reno or Vegas. So switching to online PD, we've seen increased participation in our conference. We had, so all right, another thing that happens out west is we only have 17 counties in our entire state, and all of them are enormous, and have very few people except for the county that Reno and Vegas are in. And this past plan conference, our fifth annual conference, had representation from 10 of those 17
oh my gosh.
counties, which for us is huge, keeping in mind that probably 4 of them don't have language teachers at all.
Right.
There's one, let me give you guys an example. There's one county in Esmeralda, Nevada, which is a mining town where it's still active silver and gypsum mining happening there in Esmeralda. But the entire county that Esmeralda is in does not have a high school. The kids that live there commute probably 2 hours to Beatty, Nevada, which does have a high school. Yeah, there you go, Esmeralda, Nevada. Yeah, she's pretty. She's in the middle of nowhere, but the teacher there, so the high school there in Beatty, Nevada, does not have a world language teacher. So their principal teaches Spanish, French, and Russian via Duolingo, and does not know either of those languages.
Oh boy.
So we do have a state seal of biliteracy, which has been a great thing for us as far as trying to offer distance language education for the students in those areas that are not served, where that equity issue does exist. Yeah, God, seriously, that principal that's trying with the Russian and the French on Duolingo and Spanish, but and he attended Plan. He came to Plan. He's like, I want to know how I can support my 6 students who are taking language in my high school.
Right, help me.
and anyway, and not, I mean, I should throw this out there. Meredith White was one of our keynote speakers at our planned conference. Yay, thank you for being there. We appreciate you so much.
Anytime.
Um, Another glow we have, and this is kind of a glow that I'm particularly proud of, is we've started a newsletter, and it's just been in the last 2 years. Um, I don't know, and like I said, we're a 10-year-old organization, so these are things that I'm sure other organizations did 40 years ago, but
Well,
here we are.
but did they do
We
them
have,
well? You know?
yeah, right. So we've started. It's been pretty popular. It's attractive. Meredith's going to have a piece in the newsletter this coming this in May, um, and we have also started a statewide mentorship program. And our little gal that we have, our little social studies gal that we have at the state association, um, tired and losing steam. Yeah, with newsletters. Ours is appreciated, and it's
Yeah,
appreciated, I think, especially by those rurals, especially by those um,
absolutely.
people that don't have the
Mhm.
yeah, they do take consistency for real. Um, Anyways, but our mentorship program, and we've had two from our rurals come into our mentorship program this year. And the mentorship program was actually born out of Lil, believe it or not. It was our Lil representative that said, "I'm going to start this mentorship program," and she does it based on book study and actual like for real membership and actual for real like mentorship. Um, she uses the planning book from Actful and a couple of other ones as well. And I think the key to successful PD and successful mentorship programs and things like that is making sure that there's something in it for the people that are involved. Um,
Mm,
Teachers often feel as if they are um, spread pretty thin. I think we might agree with that we're spread pretty thin. But if there's something in it for us, especially if it means that we can renew our license or something like that, or licensure credit or something like that, and that's been a game changer for us here in Nevada. And it took plan advocating for that person at the State Department of Education for us to finally be able to offer credit for relicensure and those sorts of things. And I feel like that if your state is not doing that, you should be, because that gets a lot more people involved when there's a carrot dangled. Um, we love our carrots. And finally, our one of our biggest glows, I think, has been advocacy at the national level. And I participated with Meredith at Language Advocacy Day for a few years, and getting the world language bug in the ear of your elected officials means a ton. And it means that they know your name when you see them, and they do. They are all about the optics and the PR. So they want to remember your name. They want you to go back to your state and your district and say, "I had such a positive meeting with so and so, and you should definitely yeah, that exactly like that." And that's what it goes back to, is making sure that we can cure monolingualism, as Nelson says. I love that quote as well. Let's see. I'm looking at my lesson plan. Sorry, looking at my lesson plan. And
I just dropped in the link too for Language Advocacy Day because, like you said, I think I felt. I don't know if you had this experience. I told you my student teaching mentor paid for my first conference, and it was not like an if, it was make sure to keep the weekend of March, whatever, clear because, da 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 da. And I was like, oh, okay. Um, like that was just that's just what we do. Like it was just a cultural piece of the department and of Gwinnett County. And I'm sure Mishaila would say, Forsyth as well, because she's just north of me. It was just like for the people who are creating a lot of the assessments or moving and shaking in a district, like that's just what we do. So they were a really strong model in that way. And I really felt like you said, I felt like when I saw people presenting and winning awards and like standing at the luncheon where it was like, okay, flag board or plan board or whoever, stand up and be recognized. Like, thank you for planning a great conference. And for flag, it's usually like at the luncheon and that kind of thing. And Skolt, same way. Like, I was like, oh my God, these people are amazing. Like these people are famous. And it felt like they were legitimately like famous, and it felt really out of reach, or it felt really fancy or something.
Right.
It just felt like, I don't, yeah, like not inaccessible in a bad way, although I know people feel
Right.
that is true. I don't know. I felt like it was inaccessible in kind of a clout way, but I see now that they had just, a lot of them, been working together for so long. Like it was that thing where you get to a conference and literally, I don't know if you've had this experience, literally everybody you see is hugging, like
Right.
your first time at whatever. And so you're at the registration table, like waiting for them to hand, like, hi, last name White. Yeah, first name Meredith. Thanks. You know, and they're like, oh, let me find, you know, they're going through and whatever. And meanwhile, everyone around you is like squealing, like, oh my God, Johnny. Oh my God, Florencia. And it's like, hey. And I always was like, oh, I want that. Like that's kind of nice. That's kind of nice. And
Right.
things like Language Advocacy Day, after going a couple times, have totally become that. And Flag has totally become that, and Scold has totally become that. And I think you're right that it's like they, you know, get it, like getting involved and just sucking it up and going,
Right.
I'm going. Oh, let's see what happens. Let's see. This is
There's
like, you know, fancy,
there's
but
only that awkwardness once. There's only
that's
that
it.
awkwardness once,
That's it.
and I think most will agree that there is only that. And I love that Stacy's saying in the chat, you have to start somewhere. That they can be intimidating, especially for new teachers. That's another reason why it is so important for those of us that do work with pre-service teachers, whether you are a methods instructor or whether you are a student teacher, you have a student teacher in your classroom that year or something. It is so important for us as those, geez, am I about to call myself a veteran teacher? Am I about to say that?
Yes. Yeah.
um, for veteran teachers who are leading the way for the people that are going to come after us, to show the importance of maintaining a professional network and being at the table and being a part of making decisions. And um, another thing that I think is so underrated about attending conferences and keeping a professional network and getting involved, something that's underrated is what it does for you as far as how you feel after the fact. You
Mm,
may go into a you might go into a PD, and this just happened, I don't know, 3 weeks ago at the plan conference, Meredith White, where I felt like I was just trodden down and overworked and underpaid and spread too thin and that kind of stuff. And you get into these things, and um, you get into conversations and you hear a keynote speaker or you go to a presentation and you're like, wow. And you walk away feeling as if that weight has been lifted. And that is because you're no longer an island, so to speak. You're no longer an island. You have found a connection, a commonality. Um, you found your people, you found your tribe. And that's why I say that awkwardness only exists one time. It only exists the first time
mm,
until you find your people. And once you find your people, please let me tell you that you will continue to find more people and more people and
absolutely.
more people.
Absolutely. Well,
Um,
and then your people find people, and suddenly you go, oh my God, TJ, do you know so and so? And it's like, oh no, but I remember seeing it. It's like, oh, shut up. You know, suddenly you're the people squealing at the table going, oh my God, TJ, you know, whatever, like that,
yep,
that it's like you become, like Florencia said, you like go from presenting and you're like, oh my God, like how do people do this? And then after a while, you know, you're vulnerable, and you, like after enough of that, and you find other people who are willing to be vulnerable in the same ways. I think that's really powerful, because then you can, I find I'm able to be honest with myself on a whole different level. If there's
right,
something that I can go, oh my God, I just totally screwed up this presentation, and there were 100% like 50 people in there, and we ran out of time, you know, whatever happens, or
yep,
worse, you know, I said this, or, you know, I misspoke, or, um, whatever. And it's like, oh, totally been there. And you're like, oh, thank God.
It's
Like,
not all that contrasted from we are on stage every single day.
all
All
day.
of us are on stage every single day. And it's not all that contrasted from being on stage in front of your class than it is to being on stage in front of
Mhm.
colleagues. It's not all that contrasted. And I would actually even argue that having the gall, the gumption, and all that kind of stuff to go on stage in front of teenagers or toddlers or whatever level you happen to teach kind of takes more of that than it does um, to show up in front of adults and be a part of putting something together. Um,
Absolutely.
yes, the one person liked it.
It's
I'm
like,
in. I'm in.
or you're in that room where like Joe and I have talked about this. I'm sure you and I have too, of like because I'll go to I've been known allegedly to show up to Joe's presentations with like a can of wine. Not my fault. They give him the 5 o'clock time slot. Okay, not my fault. And so I'll be like in the front row, like, and then I'm looking around. He's like, "Oh my God, did you see the? There were like 3 people in the second row that were just like the people that just have a poker face, like in a session, and you're like." Like please do anything, react in any way. And then after like it's all done, if when it's like when those people go, oh my God, thank you so much for like a great session, I really appreciate it, you're like,
Yep.
because you were stone cold, so like poker face whatever metaphor the whole time, and you looked like you wanted to be anywhere else but here. Thank you for the compliment. Like it's like, oh phew.
I think that when I first met Joe was in DC
Hmm.
at Act Full, and I came to your presentation on um I want to say it was like gender neutral pronouns or something along those lines in DC, and I want to say Meredith was there drinking too.
It's because I've seen that. I've seen that session like 4 times because I
Okay,
like I just I love that session. I think I've
it's
seen
good
it like,
stuff.
twice at Neckful, once at Skull, yeah, once absolutely at right. Thank you, Nelson. Una copita no más. Like I'm not
Un más y nos vamos. That's
right,
una
right.
de las
Yes,
mentiras, ¿no?
100%. Yeah, you're totally. I forgot that he did that session there as well. Oh, I love that session. I'm
That was good stuff.
100% drinking a can of wine in any session past 4 p.m. Period.
Right.
As one
Why
does.
weren't you there? Because until this webinar series, that's yeah.
Oh, Kelly,
But see, but you know what? Let's point that out. Let's see. Like you've probably only seen each other virtually,
mhm.
and there's already a connection there, and there's already like when you guys do eventually see one another at Sculpt or at Neckful or at Actful or something like that connection is irrevocable and it will continue to grow and your people will become her people and her people will become your people and you will people collect as we've seen in the chat here. So um I just want to kind of emphasize that none of those glows happened overnight. None of them happened in isolation. And they happened because people like me, people like you that are in attendance today, stepped up and said, if not me, who? And then proceeded to ask themselves, why not me? Rather than, if not me, who? So ask yourself, why not me? So I would love for, if anybody has any questions, I would love to have some more conversation. And both me and our organization here in Nevada are on the socials. There's the information there for you on that final slide. But um, I agree, Florencia, that when we have conversations that it flows a little bit more organically than trying to you're higher ed, but I know that like high school and elementary teachers, we kind of let bells rule our lives
Absolutely.
as far as like from when we yeah when we get yeah bells as in like
Like
class starts when the bell
right,
rings,
right,
class ends when the bell rings, and you can go to the bathroom when the bell rings,
right.
and you can have lunch when the bell rings, and that kind of stuff. Like, um, but when there's a little bit more flow like this, when it's a more organic conversation type things, we have sí, un timbre, no? A little bit sheep, yes, a little bit sheep like. um it's interesting, and actually sheep aren't the one that wear bells, it's cows that wear bells, aren't they? Anyways,
But I mean, like sheep, like wake up, sheeple, where it's just like, yeah, without the bells, it's like people don't know what to do. Like, bring, we're like, but it's 9:30.
right.
Do we keep second period? Like, no, second period's over. Like, let them, we're so afraid to do anything.
All right, see the Argentina connection happening in the chat, loving that, loving that. So can I ask, um is anyone currently involved in their state organization, or a regional organization, or an AAT? Florencia absolutely is. Joselito is involved. Rifla, is that Rhode Island? I'm assuming
Yeah,
that's Rhode Island.
yeah,
Muy bien. Who do we know in Rhode Island? We know Aaron, right? We know Aaron in Rhode Island.
yes.
And how do we know Aaron from Rhode Island? Because it's our people. It's our people that you meet when you go out and that kind of stuff. You joke that you're board adjacent, always around, willing to help, no define. And you are, okay, so Kelly is, you don't have the boat, you're the one that has the friends with boats.
Right.
And that's kind of what you kind of want to be, right? Because you don't want to store a boat or maintain a boat, but you want to be able to use a boat when you feel like it, right? And go water skiing and tubing and that kind of stuff. TFLA, yes, for Southwest Cold, muy bien. And AAT or regional AATF, awesome, glad to see it. And I would love to connect a little bit more with TFLA, with TFLA. And acronyms, we have to learn how to pronounce acronyms sometimes too,
Right.
don't we?
Or they need more vowels.
Right.
It's like Central States doesn't have any vowels. I'm like, successful. Like,
Tef-
see, say Central States.
Right. Central State. Yeah, I don't think Central States can be pronounced. Or you just say TFLA. I've with the Southwestern region, there's two factions. There's factions of people that say Southwest Colt, and there's factions of people that say SWO Colt,
Oh
which
my
I
God,
don't get.
that one time, and Keith Cothran was like, "Don't you ever?"
Yeah. Yeah, there's the two factions, but
yeah.
I'm so glad to see that most people in the room are actually involved in their state organization or a regional or an AAT or something like, yes, Dr. Aaron Papa, yes. I learned a lot from Aaron actually, about how to approach State Department of Education and how to work with them. She is kind of a rock star in terms of advocacy, and always willing to help and stuff like that. Let's see. Ashley said that's why I came. Needed some advice. So, yeah, learn to be a lobbyist. Absolutely. Ashley, what can advice on what? Can you elaborate on that, Ashley? And Florencia, why do I think K-12 teachers are more involved than faculty in higher ed? Okay. I said I wanted this to be a natural conversation and an honest conversation. I'm going to tell you pretty honestly, and pretty honestly, I think that K-12 teachers are more involved in faculty in higher ed because the focus is different. The focus is different. Often, faculty in higher ed have a focus on something like, for example, like this person is a Cervantista, and that is their thing. That's what they do. They aren't necessarily, if you look at AATSP, or you look at ACTFL, you look at a state organization, and most of those organizations are one of the letters in their acronym is teaching. like American Association of Teachers of Spanish and Portuguese, American Council on the Teachers of Foreign Languages, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And often in higher ed, especially with tenured professors that I've noticed and stuff like that. And this, I'm probably speaking from a very like bubble perspective of here in Nevada, because that is my experience in higher ed. But it is their focus is on something else. Their focus is on Cervantes, and those, so they're members of like international associations of Cervantistas or something like that. And their focus is not necessarily on the teaching piece of it. Like I said, all the associations have that T in there, right? Most of them have that T in there, or educators or something along those lines. So it's not that they're not involved. They probably are professionally involved. They're just probably not professionally involved in the teaching piece, if that makes any sense.
Right. That makes sense. Absolutely. And then I think, therefore, that's why I think a lot, I mean, you cater towards who you have. So a lot of your sessions are going to be catered towards middle and high, teachers. And so elementary school or less commonly taught languages have a hard time sometimes. And I've seen that argument in a couple of ways, really, I guess, I don't know, more publicly in the last couple of years, of like really differentiating your conference, not just having all of the sessions, because who's like the most, like the majority at a conference? Spanish teachers, and then when you look at education and the like disproportionate demographics anyway, now you've got like a block. Most of your attendees, most of your presenters are usually Spanish teachers, because we're at a dime a dozen. So making sure to incorporate like less commonly taught languages, other levels, but then also looking at how you're representing the demographics in your presenters. If it's all Spanish teachers, do we have a mix of native speakers? Do we have a mix of, BIPOC teachers? Do we have a mix of, all these different kind of representative groups? Because if not, all the conferences, I think, historically have, but they will continue to keep looking like the same groups talking about the same things, if that makes sense. It's a lot of like white Spanish teachers. Sorry, there's like a gnat in my face or a mosquito or something. And they're presenting on, games, or how to, here are some PowerPoint presentations for this particular textbook. And it can get a little just no longer irrelevant, I guess. It can get a little irrelevant really quickly and not include a lot of people who we work directly with, but for whatever reason don't have a seat at that table.
Right. And I like that you mentioned all of those different layers, because when we hear diversity lately, I think our mind goes in one direction. Our mind goes to ethnic diversity, racial diversity, and things like that. But and those things are tremendously important and very important to see represented and have represented on boards and in leadership and stuff like that. But it can mean so much more than that. It can mean just having, like, New Mexico struggles, and I feel like their struggle is very unique in this. They struggle with having with their board being all female French teachers.
Wow. Right.
Yeah. And so, like, diversity in languages taught, diversity in levels taught. Like, we were just having this conversation with Florencia, like, where are those higher ed people? Public versus private versus charter, and those community-based language schools and things like that. They're all language teachers. And that does sort of go back to Florencia's question. And at the end of the day, even if you are a Cervantista, and that's just the example I'm using because that's the department chair at UNLV, she happens to be a super like Cervantista. Even if that's your bag happens to be Cervantes. Even if that happens to be your bag, at the end of the day, you are a Spanish teacher.
Right.
That T exists in your profession. That T exists, and that is what the organizations like our regionals, like our AATs, and like our state organizations are there to support. Yeah. And things take priority and focuses go elsewhere. I just want to check if there's any other. Um,
TJ, would
yeah,
you
please.
say, and I know we've talked about this, and I know,
Mhm.
you and I are very open about things. Like, what do you say? Or like, I know what I say, or I know what I think, what I say, and it's really nuanced and it's really, like you said, it's so layered and it's so complex. But when someone makes the argument or points out, yes, that boards are not representative, or teacher of the year, for an organization or for a region, like, is not representative or historically has not been, or, those kind of things. When we take into consideration that boards are, 9 out of 10, I don't know of any that are paid, but so all the ones I know of and have been on are volunteer. And same thing with like presenting and, putting in a proposal, and then like the kind of crappy part, which is like still paying even if you present, like
Right.
that's just kind of a necessary evil for a lot of things. And that's a whole separate sesh. But when you look at these things and people say there's a lot of gatekeeping in world language education,
Right.
in terms of boards, in terms of representation, in terms of tapping people, for things. How do we get better at that? Or what's your
It's a,
on that?
I love that you asked this. Thank you. It's a perception thing. It's a perception thing, and it is an optics issue. It's an optics thing, and it's something that, when I say optics, it's just how it's people from the outside looking in, right?
Mm,
Um, and that is very a gatekeeping thing, or that is like the definition of gatekeeping is someone from the outside looking in and not
mhm.
feeling as if they have access
Okay.
to entering. And where does that get solved? That gets solved with, in my opinion, you ready for it? You ready for it? You ready for it? Networking, putting
Mm,
yourself out there. I feel like networking is probably one of the most important pieces of becoming of like there's so much talk about private sector and public sector, and then education is neither of them.
mhm.
Um,
Right, right.
um, there's so much talk about that I feel like, um, but what the commonality with all of us, with someone in the public sector, someone in the private sector, is that you have a list of contacts. Remember, like back in the day, you would have that Rolodex on your desk, like with the like little cards, and that was your network. That was your people.
Right. Absolutely.
Um, being able to network, and also being I just did a survey yesterday. Gosh, I'm like on the third tangent. um, I just did a survey yesterday for Katrina in Maryland,
Mm,
um, about the Teacher of the Year program, and it was sent out to all the state organizations, and asking for feedback on the Teacher of the Year program and how to make it not seem, and this is what I think the goal was anyways, how to make it seem as if it is not gate kept or something for an elite
yeah.
few, or something along those
Right.
lines. And there are a lot of programs in education that sort of suffer from that perception. But how do we get around it? We get around it by being approachable, by and I think we've done a great job with that in Nevada, of being approachable. I don't live in Nevada, or in Nevada. I don't live in Reno.
Right.
I don't live in Reno, but do I know almost all of the language teachers in Reno? Yeah, and that's because
Right.
you make the effort to, and you put yourself out there, and you meet people, and you become someone they know. And once someone has someone they know on a board, it seems a lot less intimidating.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I think a couple things happen too, and I don't know if I don't mean this to be like a controversial statement or anything, but I think a lot of times, like you said, because it's an outside looking in, and I get that. Like, I've same thing. Like I said, I remember sitting at my first conferences going like, oh wow, this all seems like very haha, like very ta-ta above me. And I don't even know the first thing about getting involved because I, was young and I had no idea and da da da. But I think when those opportunities aren't made accessible, plus the whole kind of thing looks fancy or sort of
Right.
out like off limits, inaccessible, I think there's like a perceived kind of glamour there, or like a perceived like kind of like a
Royalty.
yeah, like a romanticized thing that everyone knows each other. Or I think the other thing that happens, and I'm not saying this doesn't actually happen, but I think it gets like magnified, is not only does everyone know each other, but also like if Florencia and I like have worked together on a board, I'd be delighted. And out of my league. But like so you and Florencia, like I think there's the perception that you two would like do anything for each other. So like if someone was like, "Hey Florencio, you're the worst," like you'd come in and be like, "Hey," like that kind of a thing. Like there's like a defense there, kind of like you see in a lot of hard jobs, like just an indestructible bond. And so I think all of those things make it then see like you said, like a royalty, or like there's this special like chosen group of people. And then I think that looks like it's even harder to get into. But I say that all to say, I think what people miss when those things happen, when there's like that romanticized notion, when there's is the fact that, presenters are paying every
Right.
time pretty much. Like presenters are paying. So by the time you've gotten to actful, you haven't even eaten yet. You've
Right.
registered, gotten your flight or whatever, gotten the hotel. I mean, you're $1,000 in, period. And you haven't eaten or met up for drinks or like done anything fun. And so when you do that a few times a year, those of us who are addicted and do multiple, like now you've got a time and a monetary commitment, and it's all volunteer. Like any
Yeah.
board I've been on also pays to be there. So like I'm on, you're on the Sculpt board. Well, you still pay to go to Sculpt. So I think you have this romanticized notion, and maybe the notion too that there's like this secret network of like, you know, Illuminati like session choosers, like, oh, TJ always gets chosen because he, whatever. And we largely forget how vulnerable it is, how much sacrifice it is, why people staunchly defend other people, because there's a relationship there because of the time and effort. And I think we do need to work really hard. I think we need to work a lot harder at that representation, but also making sure people, not but, and like making sure that people realize what they're getting into. Because I think sometimes when it just looks like a lot of, the same people controlling the same things all the time,
Right.
it can look, this sounds terrible, it can look like more fun than it is, or it can look more rewarding than sometimes it is. And it's like, no, this is a huge time commitment, this is a financial there's a lot of moving pieces here that ultimately are service
Right.
based, and I think people
And
miss that.
it is rewarding, but I would be lying if I said it's always fun.
Right. Mhm.
It is often fun. Um, but I would be lying if I said it was always fun. But the rewarding piece is there. The rewarding piece is definitely there, especially when you see something come to fruition that you have been a part of. And we like to see that. We like to say, and if you ask teachers, why are you a teacher? Why are you a teacher? They'll probably say, because I want to see my students become successful and grow into
Right.
such and such and such and such, right? Well, guess what? You can do that for your profession as well.
Right.
You
Right.
can see something that you're a baby like that you have nurtured, or something that you have nurtured grow into something awesome. And you walk away with things that you're proud of.
Right.
And like you, every day you walk out of your classroom, there's something that you are proud of that you did that day, something.
Right.
No matter how deep you have to dig to figure out what it was, there's something you walk away that you're proud of that day. And
Yeah.
you walk away from any board meeting feeling that way as well, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and like Kelly said, a lot of the people that are on the boards and stuff are full-time teachers, full-time higher
Right.
ed instructors, full-time district supervisors like Mishaela in humongous districts. And so you've got like, it's like you work your workhorses to death and then you find new horses. Like all of these people are already the movers and the shakers doing a lot of things that when it's like, oh, well, there's Kelly again, she's a, whatever. Or like you said, you've been on the board, you're like, oh, 8 years, like that sounds some kind of way.
Right.
But like, then when you look at, if not, who will be? Like, if nobody's doing X position, you're like, I guess I'll do it again at the risk of looking like I just like, monopolize everything. But when you care enough that something happens, then we're teachers, we're givers. We tend to, like, we tend to just give more of ourselves than we really have.
Right.
And then like Nelson said, it's like attending AA for teaching addicts, like, hi, my name is Nelson and I was managing, like, hi, Nelson, all of a sudden it's like you start seeing the same people at the same events. That's how you get close. But we really got to work on that, because it can't keep being the
The
same
same
people
people.
stretching themselves too thin.
Yes.
And then also realizing, like, shit, this is not representative, but like,
It takes people being the example and
yeah,
staying visible. It
yeah,
takes people being the example and staying visible. I had that, like I can name off the top of my head teachers that I've had in the past that she says hi. I love that. Um teachers in the past that modeled this for me. And so I knew that it was something that was in
yeah.
my future as well, something that was going to be part of my professional path.
Yep. And I think we have to extend more invites. And I think we have to extend more intentional
Very that.
invites, like, hey, I thought of you. Because to me, that's nice. Like, that feels, if somebody's like, hey, I thought you'd be good for this. It's like, really? Thank you. Like,
Very that.
uh,
Hmm.
yeah, I think there's a lot of things we have to do. I just always feel like I feel really conflicted when people talk about organizations in that way, because it's like teacher of the year nominees. You're like, yes, teacher of the year needs to be more diverse, but like, it's, if you look at a regional like Southwest Colt, it's like, okay, well, if you feel like they all look the same, or if they're representing like a majority of the population, like of the teaching population, which is also still not represented, like not appropriate, who's
Right.
nominated? Do people know how to nominate people? Do people, like, how are they being evaluated? Because if every state in the Southwest Colt region is evaluating their teacher of the year differently, and then Southwest Colt is doing it like Actful does, like, is there the same criteria?
Right.
I'm making up stuff, but like, did New Mexico just go, like, they had 3 nominees and they sat around the board meeting and went like, oh yeah, gotta be so and so, agreed, yay, no,
Right.
and that's it. Whereas Nevada might be like pouring over applications, all day board
I
meeting, like,
wish.
taking it super seriously. Like, that's also not cool. So who are we nominating? Do people know how to nominate? And how are we getting more teachers that look like our teachers, that look like our students, that look like our languages?
Right. Do you know what we've started doing as well? And I probably should have mentioned this as a glow, but we do a series like this. It's very similar. It's called Plan Chats, and it's hosted by Ryan
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
And at the end of each thing, what doesn't matter what we do, whether it's just a webinar, whether it's a plan chat with Ryan, whether it's the end of the conference, we give information. We give that information about if you are interested in becoming a board member, attend this like we hold information sessions
Yep.
for
Yep.
people to understand what it looks like and what it entails and why they should become involved and stuff like that. And even if it's just in a very like our plan chats are very similar to this forum, where it's a conversation and people can ask questions and all that kind of stuff. Um, and when it's such a low key, like we all learned about affective filter, right?
Right.
Affective filter just comes straight down and exactly. Mhm.
Yeah, it's not like choosing a
Exactly
new
what Kelly in
pope.
the
It's
chat.
not like behind closed doors. It's not like, oh, let the smoke out, new pope. Yeah, we decided, like, who's we? If
She
you're
said new
interested.
pope. Okay. Yeah. The conclave. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's no conclave.
right, right, exactly. No, I think that's really important. And I think it's also okay to sit, like, to question your organization's bylaws. Like, if it has been the same board for 20 years, like, if they're the only people that like keep signing up to do it, okay, I guess. But if not, like, what are we doing here? Why?
Term limits.
Why?
Term limits are important. And it's important for us to see different people. That's why I mentioned at the very beginning that it's important for us to see uh, different people on a board rather than seeing the same people. When I said I was on the board for 8 years, that I've been on the board for 8 years. Yeah, it's been a minute, but um,
Mm,
it is because the same people show up often. But those personal invites, like we've mentioned, those personal reach outs, those well checks that
yeah,
we often have to do for people, just making them feel as if they are um, Look who just came in. Look who just came
Hi.
in.
Oh, handsome boy. Hey, Choo Choo. Oh,
Hey, buddy. Anyways, those well checks, those check-ins with people, those personal votes of confidence, and them knowing your story and your background and how you got started, can tear down that perception of gatekeeping and perception of royalty or perception of this isn't for me.
right, right. Um, and and will it ever be? And like, do I fit in? It's that core thing, right? Like that core thing of belonging. You want to feel in your school or in your workplace or in your home, in your family, in your circle of care, or like whatever it is, you want to feel like you
Right.
belong and like you're valued there. And what I always say is like, just like with friends and like whatever is like in your like dripping wet naked rawness, because you know
Right.
like that. I feel like is when I always think like something terrible is going to happen is when you're getting out of the shower, because you're like so vulnerable, you're like
Mhm.
totally naked, dripping wet. But I think that's as you get. And so that's always kind of what I think of is like, who do you have in your life that accepts you at your dripping wet, naked, raw like self? And how can we make more of those connections
Yep.
professionally? Because for me, professional organizations saved me when I wasn't feeling fulfilled at work. The people in my own department weren't speaking to me for like no reason. They weren't speaking to anybody. And so I found a lot of connections like, on like social media, like in Lang Chat and in my organization and stuff like that. And it was like, you know, that's what kept me teaching. And, not the people 5 feet away, but the people I could go text or call or see at the
Yep.
conference. And I just, how do we get more people involved in that, and feeling good about that, I think is something we
Yeah.
keep in our minds all the time.
Yeah. Feeling good about things. We need to feel good about things. And
Yeah, absolutely. TJ, thank you so much. Thanks for going into the after party with us. I super
thank
appreciate
you, of
it. And
course.
the Chewy appearance. I kicked Major out, so he's like he's pacing in the
Do you
foyer.
know why he came in? Because he was supposed to be at the dog park like a little while ago, but that's okay. We'll figure it out.
He's like, I had a date, Dad.
Yeah.
Amazing. No, I super appreciate you, and I'm thankful for our friendship, and obviously for us having connected over the years, and just all the things, because you guys are doing incredible
Likewise.
things in Nevada, and it's like truly, for being such a young organization, truly a model in a lot of ways of keeping things relevant, keeping things really yeah, just moving. I
Thank
guess
you. We are trying. We are trying, and we're trying to make a place for ourselves on the national stage and all that good stuff. We're trying.
yes, cool. Yay. Well, thanks everybody. I'm gonna post the recording ASAP, and Chewy hopefully gets to go do little dog adventures. Major's gonna do some, hopefully he hasn't like chewed through something, and we're gonna figure that situation out. So thank you so much. Yeah, Joe said this is the first one he's taken notes at. He's like, I've enjoyed all of these, but tonight I took notes. So it's awesome. Yay. Thank you so much. TJ, appreciate you. And you've got your details there, so I'll leave those up for a sec so people can find
Yep.
you on the socials.
Yeah, for sure. And thanks to everybody again for coming out. Georgia, it was nice to see you. Deanna, did we meet in Chicago at AATSP? Maybe?
Um,
Or at
Yes,
yeah,
yeah. That was it.
yes.
yes. And I'm gonna rename you, TJ, to Toaja Justice.
Thank you.
Because we're saying when Meredith said the metaphor of somebody who accepts you when you get out of the shower, it's your towel. So
Yeah.
you are Toaja Justice.
Thank you. I would love to carry on the legacy of being the Twaya.
Yes. Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks everybody. Bye, Nelson. You're the only face I can see. Oh, there's Diana. Yay. Kelly Sita. I see you now. Hold on. I have to adjust my, yes. Good time.